Hey everybody, this is Dan from a few months after we recorded this episode. In this episode, I mentioned that Annie Lennox sings the song Prelude to a Kiss. That is incorrect. Deborah Harry sings that song, beautifully I might add. The song I was actually referring to is Annie Lennox's version of Every Time We Say Goodbye by Cole Porter. An amazing version. Check out the show notes, I'll put both songs in it. Enjoy the episode.
It's beautiful. I would listen to an album of songs like this.
Normal singers, good singers, cannot do what she does on this song. This is what makes Bonnie Raitt very special.
It's in my brain. Okay.
Can't unhear it.
This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum.
Welcome to Backwards Beats Podcast. I'm Carl Carter Fansteel,
And I'm Dan Woodard.
and we welcome you to Thought Shack Studio on this cold, beautiful, almost Halloween, tomorrow Halloween evening in the fine state of Maryland.
I'm feeling the chills already.
I know, right? So my wife's a school teacher. One of the things that the art class does there is if you bring in a pumpkin and you're a teacher, you can give it to one of the art students and they'll carve it for you.
Nice.
So she's like, hey, this girl reached out. She's like, I want to do your pumpkin. And she goes, so I need a pumpkin. So I went to Harris Teeter and bought a mofo of a pumpkin.
Nice.
Like an absolute like truck tire.
Okay.
I was like, here you go. I spent like $30 on this pumpkin. And we wanted it for my kid. And so this thing comes back today and it's huge. It's like, like 2 times the size of a basketball.
Right.
Big old Elmo face.
Can you put him inside?
You know what? You probably could. If the top is wide enough, you could sit my kid inside it. And my kid is not small. He's almost 2 and he's a chonker.
Right.
And big old Elmo pumpkin though, and it is so good. This kid did such a great job. And according to a couple other teachers in the department, it's by far the best. One of our good friends was like, I tried to pawn mine off to the kid and tell them to take it. And they're like, no, I want you to bring it home to your kids.
That's awesome.
So anyway, I got this massive pumpkin inside. And then we're going to go and make pizza at my parents' house because they have a much nicer trick-or-treating neighborhood than we do.
Very nice.
Haul our kid around tomorrow. You don't have little kids to trick-or-treat anymore.
I don't. We used to, and actually our neighborhood has changed. When our kids were little, there were not a lot of little kids in the neighborhood, a few. And we used to every year build a haunted house in our garage.
See, you strike me as the guy to do that too.
Oh,
I
yeah.
bet it was clever and high-tech.
Oh yeah, we built infinity mirrors and
Had a projector running something.
Yep, and we scored the whole thing, and we had props and animatronics we built. Yeah, it was the whole thing.
Everything's in Lydian. Oh man, but no, it's beautiful, and it's one of the. This is that time of year where it starts right. You hit Halloween, and before you know it, it's Thanksgiving, and then before you know it, it's Christmas, and then it's New Year's, and then we're all depressed.
And 30 pounds heavier.
Oh, dude, I can't do that. I can't take on 10, let alone 30 at this point. I'm a sick man.
So what are we talking about anyway?
Oh, this isn't the Halloween podcast?
Well, by the time this drops, it'll probably be the Valentine's podcast. Or
Oh, I'm into that.
yeah.
No, we have the pleasure of talking about Bonnie Raitt's album Nick of Time, dropped in 1989.
Yeah, this is number 492.
That's right, on the Rolling Stone Top 500.
Right. List of songs, which if you didn't get from our theme song with this podcast is about, I encourage you to start back from the beginning and listen to the theme song.
Or at least listen through the end.
Right. Yep.
What do you know about this album?
Well, as you mentioned, this was released in March of 1989. This is Bonnie Raitt's 10th studio album.
10th?
10, 1-0.
Oh my God.
Yep. That's not binary too. I'm a programmer, so I'm going to
0000001.
So it's her 10th studio album. And, Bonnie Raitt had been around for a while. Her early career, she established herself, as a Boston folk and blues, artist in the late 1960s.
What?
She was 40 years old when this album was released.
Are you looking at the same picture I am? She's smoking hot.
She's smoking hot.
40. Look at all that hair. I'm so jealous.
We have the upside down head thing going, so you're good.
Okay, that works.
Yeah.
No, that would be gross. All right, so she's 40 in 1989, dropping her 10th album.
Yeah.
You hear that, kids? Never give up.
Never give up. So she had some early success in the early 70s, but it took really till this album for the whole package to come together. And this was a breakthrough album for her. And, basically by the late 1980s, she had been dropped, from Warner Brothers, and, 1989 comes out, and Nick of Time really sort of hit at a very perfect time, sort of in the industry. There's sort of, I believe there's a confluence of things that really helped make this album really what it was. And being alive at the time and being aware of this album, this was definitely a big deal.
Whoa. I was alive. I was 5. But I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I was a junior or senior. Well, when was this? This was what month?
March 89.
March of 1989. So I was finishing my junior year of high school.
Oh, man. Talk about like a seminal time for music in anybody's life.
Yeah.
Like that sticks to you.
Yeah. Yep. And so I actually, in full transparency, do have this on cassette.
Hey.
Yep. And so definitely listened to it at the time. Not my favorite Bonnie Raitt album. I actually like her follow-up album.
91.
Yeah, Luck of the Draw.
Man, that had some bangers on it.
It did. And I'm curious, maybe I'm skipping ahead of things, is that album actually did better, had sold more records, was more acclaimed, was way more on the radio, on MTV. Like at that time, for Luck of the Draw, in that time period after, in the early 90s, she was all over. There are like two main things that happened around that time period. I'm going to squash some of these dates. I wish I had actually looked at this before I recorded.
Go ahead,
whatever.
be reckless.
I'm making some shit up, but there were two main things I saw a lot on MTV around that time frame. There's a lot of Bonnie Raitt live. Mm-hmm. Like I can't remember what the recording was, but there was one main performance that got played over and over, and Fleetwood Mac coming back together and performing. And I think it was around that same time period, and it was constantly like back and forth. A lot of Bonnie Raitt, Fleetwood Mac is my memory of early 90s, like through 94.
So you're getting the folk.
Yep.
You're getting Americana.
Yep.
She always had kind of, you can't say that she wasn't kind of pushed through the country crevice a bunch too in her own realm. The blues, soul, country.
Yeah, but not afraid of a couple jazz chords either.
Apparently not afraid of a couple different styles, period. I mean, it's rife with all sorts of great stuff we'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember my introduction to Bonnie Raitt being, the 91 release. And, it wasn't until 93, 94 I started paying attention to any of it.
Yeah.
The first time I remember taking notice was when I noticed that she had a Fender signature guitar. And I was like, oh, is she like that?
She can play.
Oh, yeah. I later found out. I feel like she also was there to help usher in some of the more pop-focused blues and country, like the Shania Twain-ish sounding stuff.
Yep.
The sound was developed back here.
It was. This album was interestingly curated. Wow, that was a mess of sound that came out of my sound hole.
New word, I love it.
Interestingly curated.
Yep.
In that, and we'll talk about this more when we get into the depth of the album, is and you said this before we started recording, there's like 3 production styles on here. And while she fits definitely into this sort of blues, country, Americana thing, there's also some adult contemporary vibes in the production for sure.
Absolutely.
That fall into it. But fun thing about, Bonnie Raitt is she was born with music in her family. Her mother was a pianist, and her father, John Raitt, was involved in musical theater, and he was most known for his performances in Carousel in Oklahoma. And, she's of Scottish ancestry and can be traced back to the 13th century Raitt Castle in Scotland. And there's a fun story about the Raitt Castle in Scotland.
Okay.
So in 1442, since this is Halloween, it feels like let's have some story time.
Yeah.
So in 1442, the Raitt Castle, was passed from the Raitts to the Macintoshes. And there was a feast between the two families that was about this transition. However, the meeting was a bit of a trap.
Oh no, I'm getting Red Wedding vibes here.
Yeah, a little bit. And so most of the Raitts were slaughtered during the event. And as the story goes, the Laird of Raitt Castle, in a fit of rage, blamed his daughter for conspiring with the Macintoshes, believing that she had a part in this betrayal. He chased her around the castle and through the castle, and desperate to escape, she attempted to flee by climbing out of a window, and tragically, her father severed her hands as she tried to hold on,
Plural.
causing her to fall to her death. And since then, it is said that her ghost haunts the ruins of the castle as the handless ghost. Now, Bonnie Raitt has actually visited this castle, I think in like 1990, but I thought it was an interesting way back trivia. And I think it'd be so cool to be able to trace your ancestry back like that far.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Do you think that these ghost hands help her play better guitar?
Maybe she got the hands.
Maybe she has the hand. Ooh, Halloween episode. I sense our tradition.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at her hair in this picture, yeah, Scottish checks out.
Yeah.
But wow, that's unreal. Mm-hmm. Imagine being able to tell a story about your lineage like that.
Yeah, I've got nothing like that.
That's absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Well, the album reflects nothing of that.
Not at all.
But it's so not surprising to hear that there's music in the family here. Mm-hmm. Also, like the stick-to-itness of it. Mm-hmm. Did I make that word up? I think I did. Of you're going to roll from the 60s and just put out album after album after album only to like really strike a big... You got to assume it's like publicity and money, right? Mm-hmm. Here in 89. That's some staying power because from what I understand...
That's grit.
She didn't stop producing music afterwards after
no, she did not.
A few albums. I mean, she's cooking, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. She kept going. I don't have it, committed to memory, but she may still be making some records.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how recent it was. I forgot to... I looked ahead, but I can't remember what her most recent release is. But
good for her.
But
I'm rooting for
it's
her.
a story of grit, a story of, like you said, stick-to-itiveness.
Female in the industry. And, she's, in my personal opinion, based upon having grown up in the, late 80s, early 90s, mm-hmm. she's not like sexed up. She's got talent for days. She's not, just put up there. She's not doing dance moves or choreography. She's out there playing guitar. She's singing about real topics. Mm-hmm. This is honest to God music right here.
Yeah, and she's not afraid to be a woman, like in songs like Real Man.
Sure,
right? But yeah, she's not on display.
No, that's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to talking about some of the songs on this album. Anything else you want to add into the history here?
I mean, one thing about the album is, obviously it made this list. It was registered in the Library of Congress.
Oh man, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal, and again, I'm curious. I'm curious your thoughts as to potentially why, and not because I don't think this is a fantastic album, but again, luck of the draw. By the numbers, is a better album by the numbers, right? It sold more copies. I don't know why I didn't write this down, Carl. I usually write this stuff down. but
I mean, I can pull the
it
data
sold.
too.
It sold quite a bit more. The songs were bigger hits on it, and so I wonder if because this was that breakthrough, because it showed that like fortitude and grit that it took to get here, if the sophomore album, the 11th album in this case, rode on the heels of this momentum, and by putting this one in, in the annals of time, posthumously, like looking at this as the breakthrough, maybe that's why.
It wouldn't be an unheard of story, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you think to your favorite bands, right? Think about your favorite album. The band that inspired me as a kid was 311. And though the Blue album had
practically
all this,
the same music.
yeah, it's same exact genre, guys.
yeah.
Same exact genre. Shout out Omaha, Nebraska.
Right.
But you get the Blue album that has Down all mixed up, like the things that actually got them money.
Yeah.
But the better album, was its predecessor, which was Music or Homebrew. I think it was Music. But one way or no, yeah, it was Music. And there wasn't really a radio hit there, but man, it was the one that will strike.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think you and I have determined about this list, this 500 list that we look at, is there's no rhyme or reason to their choices either per se. It's vote by committee. This could also just be that album that one of the members there fought really hard for, and it got stuck at the end of the catalog because this is the tape that lived in their parents' Volvo 740 for summer vacations, and it's just meaningful to them.
Yeah, and I'm putting in my head, not looking ahead, that I don't know if this and Luck of the Draw both make the list.
Well, that's the kicker. I was going to ask.
If they both make the list, then who knows? But if I had to pick one,
I would have picked Luck of the Draw personally.
I would too. No shade on this album.
Not at all.
Right.
But yeah, no, that Luck of the Draw for me was this. It was just that's the songs I knew.
Yeah.
It's the songs that were used in commercials.
Yeah.
And so, commercially speaking, it makes sense. I like your theory though, and I like the idea of giving the game ball to the one that kicked open the door.
Yeah, and the story behind it, the fortitude it took to get to this point, which is admirable.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to talking about some songs after this quick break.
Harold didn't set out to change the world. He just wanted to sit down without screaming. So there he was, crouched by the fire, muttering, cursing at his own backside when inspiration struck. Haggis! If he could survive centuries of scrutiny, certainly could soothe a man's most delicate woes. Harold toiled for weeks, mashing mystery meats, chanting incantations, and bribing an old witch in the Cairngorms for her family's ancient bomb recipe. There were side effects at first. A cousin disappeared. The town sheep developed bizarre opinions. And finally, he had it. A cure so powerful, so effective, so deeply, unsettlingly Scottish that the local doctor retired out of sheer intimidation. Harold's haggis hemorrhoid cream. Slap it on with joy. And if you start hearing bagpipes where there aren't any, don't you worry. That's just your arse thanking you.
I mean, that's the best part of this, right? All right. So we got 11 songs to talk about today.
Let's do it.
Number one, the title track, Nick of Time.
Nick of Time. I think what's interesting about this song is, first of all, the subject matter, which could very well be one of the things that puts it in the critics' hearts. Right? It's a very mature subject matter. It's about aging
and birth, and then finally love.
Yeah, I mean, there's like biological clock, like baked into the narrative of this song.
In spirit of giving our AI musicians to reference, one of the things that immediately struck me on my, fifth listen of this album, finally when I was like, okay, focus on lyrics. I've never been a lyrical listener, ever.
That shocks me because you have a steel trap memory for lyrics. The amount of songs that you can sing. So the fact that you don't focus on them blows my mind.
I focus on them phonetically. I don't listen to storytelling. I'm just not I'm not a great listener. I'm always like thinking about the next thing. And so sometimes I need to tell myself, be patient. And so you know how you can like get in a mindset and be like, I'm gonna listen to the drums, or I'm gonna listen to this bass, and because you catch a lick you like, and then you're dialed in. It's really challenging for me at times, especially just life noise, right? And also 2-year-old noise. Mm-hmm. Those things are loud. To get into a story and get out of my own head. And so I finally get into this story after, a handful of listens. And my first thought was, did John Mayer take this as inspiration for Stop This Train?
Well, maybe, but I think Stop This Train is at an earlier point in life, right? Stop This Train, I feel, is a song of someone in their 20s like, oh, now I have to be an adult and it's going by too fast and where's my youth? And I want to hang on to this.
Sure.
And then the whole conversation he has with his father, like
yeah.
God,
It's tear-jerking, right?
Yeah, it is. Where this is someone who like time is passing and I feel like it's running out and there's these experiences that I'm not going to have. So I feel like it's different than holding on. I feel like Stop This Train is holding on to the past, and this is, the future is going to catch me and I might not be able to do these things. That's the nuance to me.
Oh, for sure.
But
yeah, I don't know. It falls in the same category of storytelling a little bit in my mind.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I'm like,
well, it's literal. There's no metaphor in this.
And
I see babies and I want to have a baby, essentially. Right?
That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, do you think she is the friend?
I think she's the friend.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Listen to the song if you guys want to get a little deeper onto what we're saying. Highly encouraged, because frankly, I could listen to this song on repeat. It is a great song.
It's a lovely song. And one of the things I like about this song is it's not super sophisticated harmonically, but there is some sophistication to it. And I love the harmony of this song, even though it's fairly basic.
I love the low male supporting like arrangement.
Yeah, the oohs or the out of time.
Yeah, exactly. They're singing with her too, but it's just this smooth. A lot of the time, I feel like you listen to a female-led act, and what you want to do as a producer is we have this like, stack them on them, a la Chapel Roan. Like go listen right now to anything that's on the radio, and it's female stacks on female stacks. You get these smooth male vocals under them supporting. I'm not by any means suggesting that she started this or this isn't new. It's not. But it was so of the time. Mm-hmm. And like you can like see the face of her backup singers. And like if you close your eyes and you listen to their voices, there's something very beautiful about the approach and the choice of timbre for the singers who are going to support her. 'Cause she has a distinct voice.
She does. And I have a theory as to why it puts that smile on your face. Mm-hmm. Right? So this song, it's in the key of C. There's nothing super sophisticated about it.
Sure.
One of the things I like about this song is, so the main chord progression is D minor 7, C over E, F, C over G. Okay? So the reason I'm mentioning those chords is for two reasons. If you listen to the opening lick, you can kind of tell that she's voicing that opening chord essentially as an F chord in the right hand in second inversion, because the top note's an A. Mm-hmm. So an F chord, so I'm talking technical here, F chord, the notes of an F chord are FAC. A F chord in second inversion, we'd have the C at the bottom,
the bass,
C, F, A, okay? And I'm telling you this from a piano perspective because she plays keyboards on this. She plays keyboards on this live.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I haven't like watched her hands. And if you dig into some of the other voicings, she's probably voicing things differently throughout this. But for argument's sake, as a piano player, if I'm playing an F in second inversion, so that's C, F, A, and then I'm going to play a C over E, let's leave the left hand out of this. All I need to do is move two fingers down to get a C chord.
That's right, C triad.
C triad. Now if I'm going to play an F chord, I just need to move those two fingers up, and now I'm playing an F in second inversion again.
It's nice close chord voicings.
Yep, very easy. And then if I want to play a C over G, what do I need to do? Take those two fingers and move them back down, C, E, G, right? I'm good to go. And so what's fun about that, and we've talked about this in some of our bands, is who is now dictating the harmony if that's the case?
The bass player.
The bass player, 100%, because that F second inversion chord in the right hand. As soon as I slap a D in the bottom, I don't care what you're playing in your right hand. We're now playing a D minor 7 chord.
That's right, which sounds gorgeous as an opener.
Yep. And I talk about this because the functionality of this harmony, D minor 7, C over E, F, C over G, that C over G acts as a dominant chord, but it's not a dominant chord.
No, it strikes you the same way like a major 6 does. It's hopeful.
Yep.
And I really like that.
It is. And the reason I'm harping on this is that's the main progression. We get to this turnaround section where things start to evolve, right? Halfway through the first part of the turnaround section is the same progression. And then all of a sudden, so it's D minor, C over E. Oh, whoops. E augmented over D.
Oh my God. Is this a jazz chart?
Yep. And then it becomes like an E over D, which is an E dominant 7. But it's not harsh like a dominant 7, which goes to A minor. And then it goes to D minor 7. We have D minor 7 over G, which could be a G sus4 kind of thing. G right? So
Sure.
So we basically have it's the D minor 7 over G is still acting as a very muted dominant chord. And we finally land on our only instance of a C in a root position at the very last point in the song. And it always lands, the only time you ever hear a root position C chord is on the word time. Every single time.
They bring it right back to the simplest.
Love in the nick of time. I'm out of time. And when I hit that time, I hit that C.
It's home plate.
And that's really where you hear those voices you're talking about. That's where it's strongest, is right there. And I think it's because you're landing at home base for the first time in the song. You're never at home base. Even though you're hitting playing a C chords, they're never in their proper order until you finally land on that C chord in root position on the word time, just in the nick of time. And I think that is intentional.
So for those of you who have no idea what Dan just said, I want to encourage you. This is why we are doing this project together. He's incredibly brilliant. As just a music composer, frankly. For those of you who enjoy that kind of content, we actually are looking at doing some side content, Dan's Deep Dives.
Sidetracks, actually.
Yes. Oh, it has a better name now. Yeah. And this is where you can get into some side content where Dan will be able to kind of really break down some more songs. So if you have requests for some of the songs in our catalog that we've discussed or are coming up, no spoilers. Don't tell us what's coming up.
No.
But once we've released the episode, if you want Dan to dive in, you can reach us at
backwardsbeatspodcast@gmail.com
or on the gram
at backwardsbeatspodcast.
That's right. I have a segment too that I need to run by you before I announce it live online.
All right, let's do it.
For the Carl side of things. And for those who don't get that, no worries. Just know that there's something really important going on in this song that is not your typical 4-chord blather. It is well thought out. Someone did some work here.
Yeah, like I said, the fact that you arrive at home at the most important time in the lyrical content and the storytelling of it, it brings you on the story. And to simplify all of this, think about like Happy Birthday. Right? The song Happy Birthday, right? If you don't ever say happy birthday to you, right? If you live it on happy birthday, dear Carl, and then stop, you're going to lose your mind.
Yeah. You have to finish.
You have to finish. You have to resolve. And because of the pseudo ambiguity without like hard chord, like jazz stuff, it carries you along this progression, and it's used beautifully in this song to move you along without a ton of other side effects. Harmony is used very much as part of the storytelling, I believe, in this song.
Indeed. Not to be too gluttonous here, but it is the title track of the song. Also, it is the most listened to song by a long run. And this is not just getting the first song of the album bonus. It's 21, almost 22 million plays. The next most popular on the album is almost 6 million.
Yep.
this song is highly respected, and for good reasons, is what we're saying. The other thing I want to touch on in this tune is the instrumentation. So the harmony singers, that's part of the instrumentation. At first, I found the kind of late 80s digital piano a little jarring. I think it's a Yamaha CP70. It could be one of many things.
Yep.
So all you piano nerds, please weigh in as well. But there's something really beautiful about the rhythm that's established, the tone of the drums, the piano, the bass on the first several songs of this album has a little bit of grit to it. You wouldn't expect in a very smooth song, but there's something special on the overall timbre, the overall sound of the music here. When you're in a production place, one of the things you're doing is you're choosing which instrument. I have several snare drums I can pull from when I'm recording someone's drums right here in my own studio. God knows how many guitars are sitting behind me, right? And this is all because you can kind of make a neat sound design.
Yeah. And you would understand this, but listeners, you might not realize, you mentioned snare drums, the impact a snare drum can do to the entire song. The choice of snare drum, it's profound.
Indeed.
It's more profound than me as a drummer ever really realized until I really started thinking about this from a production perspective. It shapes the sound. And I'll mention it later when we get on a different song.
Yeah, I got some comments too.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on. Thank you all for hanging with us on that one. But man,
that was indulgent.
Turn this album on for just that song, honestly, in my mind, and you'll get a pretty good idea of what they're capable of here.
Yeah, there are songs more harmonically sophisticated than this one, but I just thought this was a nice story to tell.
A smart way to open an album. Yeah. Song number 2, Thing Called Love.
Bluesy Roadhouse song.
Thank you. And no chains on this one. I mean, it sounds like you're kicking a beer around and getting a little rowdy.
I can see the line dancing happening.
That's right. Yeah. And that's what you want. I think this is where you see the character of what in my mind's eye was always Bonnie Raitt. This is the person that the kind of vibe that I get with her. Whereas Nick of Time was actually kind of soft rock.
Yeah, it's more that adult contemporary.
Yeah, this one for me definitely ranks up the guitar playing a little bit. The drums are allowed to get out of the box a little bit. Once again, you get a bass guitar that's growly. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. So this album, as we mentioned before, probably has 3 different production styles. I would say Nick of Time is production style number 1.
Yeah, it's going to be smooth, cool production.
Mellifluous.
Yes.
Yeah. This one is a little bit more raw, still restrained.
Sure, but inspired more by blues.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yep. And I do want to talk about the production of this album, and I'd like to talk with you about, throughout these episodes so far, I have used the word produced and production in very opaque terms, right? And you even called me out on, I can't remember what episode it was. You're like, well, all music's produced. What are you talking about, right?
Okay.
and you're right. And producers perform many roles on an album. There's a difference between these roles, and we don't have to get into all the different roles, but sometimes there's a technical role of the producer. There's a vision role of the producer. Sometimes there's a songwriting role of the producer. There's an arranging role of a producer. There is
studio session. Sometimes they're the session musicians.
Correct.
Sometimes their job's just to clip shit and post and lie and say you did it. I mean, the amount of stuff I've done in production, I'm proud of it, by the way. Some people would probably try and keep it secret. Your job as a producer is to do just what you say. Produce. Get it across the finish line. That's my opinion. And I think it's a term, and I may have mentioned this on our podcast once upon a time. I think that the term music producer is just abused. It is absolutely overused.
Yeah.
And said without, any repercussion. It's the ultimate operations job.
It is. So I wonder if we could talk about a little bit more, you as a producer, like what some of those roles really are. I mean, I highlighted some different pieces of it, but I tried to leave it open-ended for you if you can put some finer points on some of those different roles.
So the first thing you have to take into account here, and based upon the information I just learned from you, I got a Bonnie Raitt coming in who has been playing since the 60s, and this is her 10th studio album. She's going to have opinions, right? Because she's worked with a lot of other producers in different studios, in different with different budgets, with different musicians, through different genres, through different marketing teams. And I mean, she's been through the ringer. So immediately, if you're going to produce her, the first thing you're going to do is relinquish the statement I just said. You're not going to produce her. You're going to collaborate with her because she's not green at all. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's an awareness. You determine respect. How are we going to communicate? You figure out pretty quickly what a good workflow looks like with a person like her who obviously has immense experience.
Yeah.
Then, you have to figure out how you're going to guide this ship because at the end of the day, it's your ship to guide. And so where are you going to fight your battles? Right?
Yep.
What's the story of this album? And I don't mean concept album here, but what's the identity of this album? A collection of songs can simply be a collection of songs, but it's rare that you and I get an album on the top 500 list or things that we talk about in albums we like to listen to that are like disjointed, not cohesive. There's an interesting thing going on in this album, especially in this song I'd like to talk about, which is where did this country reggae thing come from?
That's a good question. I mean,
because this song has an odd influence. It's not the only one on the album.
this is more of a blues shuffle than a reggae, but yep.
There's backbeats in this thing.
Yep.
It's not a little influenced.
Right. And is that just foreshadowing of what comes later? But right, because there's definitely a far more reggae song on this album.
Indeed.
But yeah, and I think, and actually I think there's another role we didn't talk about as a producer, which is therapist.
Oh, sure.
Right? Because there's a lot of baggage that comes with putting your emotions into a song and dealing with this, and potentially someone who's now, this is your 10th album, and
they could be loaded.
And she'd been successful. She'd been dropped. And so it's like, how do we package Bonnie Raitt in a way that is authentic to her, but then is also accessible to people? And I feel like there was definitely some packaging around her that happened on this album.
There's tensions on this album.
Yeah.
And I think it's, you hear these songs where you kind of let it rip. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I've been watching a lot of The Bear recently. And then there's some stuff that's really tamped down where it feels almost more like a karaoke track. Is that
might
too
be
harsh?
That might be too harsh, but I know what you're saying, because
production-wise, there's no pops, there's no oohs, there's nothing horribly creative going on. It's kind of half and half.
I would say there are some sterile moments. How about that?
There we go. Sterile works.
Yeah. The musicianship on this album is top notch.
Arguably too perfect.
Correct. Yeah. Sometimes. Because there are songs on this album where there's a drum fill that's out of time.
Sure.
Which is shocking because I didn't look at the musicians on this. Maybe I should have. But there's probably some surprises there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't do my homework. But like, the drummer is phenomenal on this album. Pocket is fantastic. Yep. And I'll say Pocket's fantastic, except the song does speed up.
Yes, it does.
It does, because by the time you're a minute and 20 seconds, you are a little bit faster than where you started, and that's okay.
Yep. And I think, if you listen to that opening thing that was, to me, sounded very reggae-esque.
You're right.
It's kind of a slow line, it leaves a lot of space.
Yep.
Anyway, it's an interesting song. I think it's a great way to get in. Like I said, sitting at second place on listens here, about 6 million.
Yeah.
And it's a tune people know.
Yep.
Scooting down to Love Letter.
Love Letter. All right. Sounds like Dirty Laundry to me. Or Take Me to the River.
Ah, there's a good one.
Yeah.
I knew it sounded like something.
Yeah, Take Me to the River by Talking Heads.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Even cooler.
Yep.
I mean, so Love Letter, it's, to me, this is a song that was written and produced for the sake of going after girls, the same way that Carrie Underwood song. So I took my wheel. Not the content, but it's meant to be an an anthem for a woman who's gone through the same feeling she's going through, right?
Yeah. And there's a moment in this song that I want to ask you about. And I pre-gamed a tiny bit with you on this because she starts to sort of like curdle a little bit in here. And she hits this rasp in here that almost sounds like overtone singing, like Layla Hathaway. It's not quite, it's definitely two pitches, but it's not rasp like I'm just throwing some grit into it. She does that differently in other places. But when she says, I can't remember the lyric, but she said that she...
Is it cigarettes
the
lyric?
why? No, I smoked a lot of cigarettes.
Love
She's
that
like,
line.
Yeah, but she's like, why don't you something? I can't remember what the line is. And when she hits the vibrato on that, it's almost two pitches. And I didn't look into it, but it's...
Oh, during our next break, we're totally listening to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you don't know what overtone singing is, Layla Hathaway is this phenomenal singer, and she can sing two notes at the same time. And intentionally.
And she can harmonize them.
Yes. So if you ever want to listen to Layla Hathaway, there's a song called Something on Snarky Puppy's album,
Family Dinner.
Volume
1. Yeah.
So Snarky Puppy, Family Dinner, Volume 1. The song is called Something. And towards the end of the song, she's a phenomenal, like gymnastic, like amazing singer.
She rips.
And then she starts
She does
singing chords.
I'd encourage you to actually instead listen on Spotify. It's great.
Yeah.
I'd encourage you to watch the YouTube video of it. It's incredibly high audio.
Yeah.
I rarely tell people to go watch YouTube audio, but man, Snarky Puppy puts so much effort into their work. Mm-hmm. Watching the reactions of these insane musicians around her, they're giddy.
Yeah.
Like there's no other word.
Yeah. So there's a rasp in this that immediately made me think Layla Hathaway.
Overtone.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah.
I was wondering why you asked about that earlier.
Yep.
Oh, I love that piece. Yeah, great tune here, but it's definitely a pop song.
Yeah. And good feel. Like I said, Dirty Laundry to Take Me to the River, sort of drum groove. Nice.
All right, Cry on My Shoulder.
Starts with a rain stick.
It does start with a rain stick. They use so much. They use not so much. They use a little more interesting instrumentation on this album than I thought that they would.
Yeah.
And the rain stick included here.
Yeah. This is a beautiful song.
It is a good song. Ooh. This is one of the songs that, in my mind, came out a little sterile. Considering it's called Cry on My Shoulder, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's the performance that lacks for me more than it is the mix that lacks for me.
I agree.
It lacks dynamics.
Yep. How well do you know the album Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits?
Oh, very, very much. I do not know that album.
Okay. You should know that album. It's a phenomenal album, but there are moments on that album that I will say are a little sleepy to me.
Okay.
And it's not because the songs aren't great. It's the same thing.
Oh, okay.
In my opinion, it's the same thing from a production perspective. It's because this album is impeccably produced. Everything is in its right place sonically, like the mixing. It's really, really nice. And when I talk about the role of producer, part of the role of producer is controlling the performance.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think there are some performances on here that are subdued, and I agree on this one here. I think it's a beautiful song, and this is more of almost like a background song.
That's right. If you listen to what she's saying, the content and the arrangement, there's nothing wrong there. But why did it not strike me as emotional?
Yeah, I bet you live this is a gut wrencher.
Precisely, and that's the difference here. And so for those folks who are, big fans of, seeing their music live or comparing it to the vinyl or whatever it might be, here's an opportunity for you because it's too clean for what the content is saying.
Yeah.
If this song was about ordering an ice cream sundae at a diner, I would be perfectly situated, right? This is called Cry on My Shoulder.
Yeah.
And it's a comforting song, and I don't feel like the emotion got here.
Yep.
But it's not like she's not believable in her presentation.
I think Bonnie Raitt sounds great on all of these songs.
Yes.
It's the framework for which she's sitting on top of, which sometimes I think falls flat in certain cases.
And I don't think that's a Bonnie Raitt issue.
No.
which I think is why production's such a heavy
Yep.
conversation point for us today. Anything else on this one?
No.
Great. Real Man.
This is a fun one.
Here it is. This is a jukebox song.
Yep.
This is I want to pump this inside of the bar with a Bud Heavy, as we call them.
Yep.
Shout out Dan Gallagher for that terminology. It's not a Bud Light, it's a Bud Heavy. And it's pretty much, highbrow, normal, what do I want to do in order to get into a relationship talk.
It is. What does it sound like to you? What does this song remind you of?
Werewolves of London.
Yeah, Warren Zevon, right?
Or you say.
All right. We could say Sweet Home Alabama, but it's closer to Kid Rock's All Summer Long version of
That's
of it.
right.
And here's the interesting thing. This is where I think snare drum's interesting. Because the groove, it's definitely in the pocket.
Yeah, but it's also a little swung, as it should be.
Yep. But then the snare choice. This is 80s.
That's so 80s.
80s gated snare. So when I said, how close is this to Werewolf of London? Same key. But I go over to Werewolf of London, and the production of Werewolf of London is brighter, and the snare is a bit higher pitched. And I'll talk about another song where the snare, if the snare was different, it would just feel different. The drumming on this is fantastic. It is in the pocket. It makes me kind of think of live from Daryl's house, CeeLo Green doing I Can't Go For That.
That guy's such a mofo.
That drummer, I don't know the drummer's name, but Daryl,
Backwards Hat guy.
Yeah,
He's so good.
Backwards Hat guy, the drummer for Daryl Hall's live band. His pocket is impeccable, and it makes me
His
think
whole
of it.
band is really
Yeah,
something else, honestly.
yeah. Check out Live from Daryl's house. Just watch it. It's all, most of it's all been like re-released on YouTube recently, and he's done a few new episodes. So
Ooh,
Yeah.
I feel like I fell off on that,
yeah,
but it's just so much fun. Yeah, this song, this and Love Letter kind of scratched a similar itch for me. Mm-hmm. Though I find the production on this to be a little more poppin'.
lively. Yeah, I agree.
Great. I think let's do one more.
One more. All right.
Yeah, and I think this is actually a really beautiful transition. Nobody's Girl.
It's like this raw guitar, beautiful song, and the guitar sound so I think the guitar sounds great. I wish it wasn't. So the performance isn't super polished,
I was gonna say the same.
but the production is, and I would rather the production not make up for the I'll say mistakes in the performance, because it's the performance is fantastic, but it's
Here's what you got going on.
help me out of this corner.
You've
that I
got
put myself in.
incredibly high definition string sound,
Yeah.
and somebody who's not the tightest on string control,
Yep.
and you hear it immediately.
Yep. There's some mutes that are unintentional. I think are unintentional, not choices, and some. Yep.
With that said,
Yep.
that immediately for me authenticates the closeness of this singer and the rawness of the song.
Mm-hmm.
So in a big way, if you're not a musician who's super keen, or your ears aren't like absolutely like dialed into this stuff like ours are right now, not because we're better, just because it's our job to listen this closely to these songs, it feels like you're standing there.
Yeah.
So kudos to whoever mic'd that thing, and I guess kudos to whoever played it, maybe Bonnie herself.
Probably.
But it feels human.
Yeah. I love this song.
Where there's songs on here that don't feel human.
Yes.
So this feels very human. We were just talking about these crazy gated digital sounding verbed out snares, and all of a sudden you get this guitar, an actual wooden acoustic guitar right in your face,
Right.
and some subject matter that matches.
Yeah, and it is a nice transition in the album. It takes you out of like Real Man. Again, it's closer to a bar song kind of vibe. We get down to this very intimate, moment in the album.
This is third production style for me, by the way.
I agree.
So we've talked about production style 1 and 2.
Yep.
Right. 1 would be the contemporary adult sounding of the time use of big soundscape. Number 2, your honky tonkin' bluesy sound. Here's sound 3. Intimate, up close, personal journal of Bonnie Raitt.
Yep, I would agree with you.
Effective. Top 3 for me.
100%.
Anything else about this one?
No. Nobody's girl.
Perfect time to take a break.
Let's do it.
All right.
You ever notice how things change? Slow enough you don't see it. Fast enough you can't stop it. Used to be a peanut butter jar was a humble thing. Modest, reachable. A man could spread himself a sandwich without feeling like he was spelunking into the abyss. But now they grow taller, stretch towards some cruel capitalist sky, while our knives, once the noble instruments of effortless spread, shrink into obsolescence. The ratio is off. The balance is broken, and I ask you, when did we let this happen? First, they made us scrape. Then they made us angle, tilt the jar, risk the knuckle dip, and now they want us to dig with our hands. They want us primal, desperate, peanut butter beneath our fingernails, and our dignity left behind on the counter. But I say no. I say we stand. We demand. We reclaim the right to properly proportioned jars, one that respects the length of the butter knife, one that does not ask us to compromise our very humanity. Because if we do nothing, if we let it slide, one day we won't even remember the feel of a clean, effortless scoop. And that, my friends, is how they win.
Hey, you know what, man? I love our recording nights.
Me too.
Yeah.
I love them very much. And I also love Harry Connick Jr.
Wow. Where did that come from?
We were just having an offline discussion about some quirky movies that featured Meg Ryan and
And Alec Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin. The way that you and I get into our deep dive stuff is so funny.
Yeah, they were in a movie together called Prelude to a Kiss. I think it came out early 90s. I saw it in the theater. I was enamored with Meg Ryan. I really liked the movie. It probably sucks, actually, but there was a cool soundtrack to it.
Was she in Twister?
No, that is Helen Hunt.
Helen Hunt. Darn it.
Yep.
All right.
And in that album, so this song, there's a song, Prelude to a Kiss, which is a Duke Ellington song. And on the soundtrack, Annie Lennox
She was walking on broken glass.
What's that?
Annie Lennox?
Annie Lennox is the...
Walking on broken
Is that the Rhythmics? Yeah. Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah.
Here Comes the Rain Again.
Yeah.
Yep. So the Rhythmics, Annie Lennox, sings a beautiful version of Duke Ellington's Prelude to a Kiss, which is a jazz standard. And you'll know why we're talking about this in a few minutes, but should we bring ourselves back to center?
Indeed.
All right.
Back to center. So we're just over halfway through this wonderful album, Nick of Time by Bonnie Raitt.
Mm-hmm.
First half, if you look at it, it's really a showcase of different ways we can use Bonnie in songwriter singer format.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I would read into it if you had to look at it,
Yeah, I agree.
in two halves.
I agree. And we said before, I think Bonnie shines in every song.
She's just so fantastic, and she's versatile.
Yeah.
Like versatile. How do you say it?
It depends.
Okay, it's made us
Caribbean
smile.
or Caribbean.
Oh man, I
Want to hear a weird story about that?
more than anything.
So Caribbean, nuclear.
okay,
Story I heard was back in the early days of cinema when they would do newsreels before the movies. What I heard is saying Caribbean is faster than saying Caribbean, and you had to condense your content to a certain frame rate.
wow.
And so, not frame rate, but it's a certain time window. And so a lot of words were truncated.
It's just a matter of convenience
to accommodate that. I don't know if it's completely true, but I've heard it more than one time, so I'll believe it.
I'll buy it.
Yep, we can.
You have a cinema background. I'll buy it.
Yep.
All right. So, second half of this album, to me, when I look back on it, is absolutely the meat of this thing. if we didn't scratch an itch in songs 1 through 6 and find the genre that tickled you, this back half probably isn't for you.
Well, I feel like the front half of this album catches your attention. It has the hits, with one exception, because the next song was definitely a very big hit. I remember being on the radio constantly.
Which is so funny because, I mean, I'm not saying I'm a encyclopedia for music, but I have depth. I've heard a lot of music. I keep my ears open. I've never heard this song up until we started this project, which is Have a Heart.
Have a Heart.
And this is the third most listened to song on the album at just under 5.8 million listens.
And probably more intentionally reggae than the song you mentioned, but
Yeah.
But I'm with you.
Is it Caribbean or Caribbean?
Depends on if it's like 1952 and I'm giving a newsreel, or 1946 and I'm talking about the war.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. Look, this is the second time on this album. And by the way, we went back and listened. And though you can easily call a thing called Love a shuffle, that breakdown in the 2/3 of the way through the song is unmistakably heavily.
Yeah, it's a 2-drop. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
They got like Timbalinis or something they throw in there.
Yeah. I'm with you. You've converted me.
All right.
I'm a convert.
I rest my case.
All right. Quick side note. I went to a music school, a fairly well-known music school. We don't need to say what it is. But at my graduation, Sting was the honorary doctorate who spoke at my graduation, handed me my degree, and the chancellor of our school, as introducing Sting, decided to refer to the musical stylings of reggae.
Oh no.
You're the chancellor of a music school, a fairly well-known music school. He's no longer the chancellor, but
I wonder why.
Well,
I wonder if reggae.
His first name is the reason why my school is spelled the way it's spelled.
Got it. So Spike Lee.
Correct. And it was so, like, all of us were like, "Oh my God, Mr. Sting is on stage," and he just literally said reggae,
Okay.
not reggae. But it was mostly a jazz school when I was there, so
Okay.
Fair enough.
Reggae.
reggae. So this is a reggae tune at its core.
Love that. I mean, how can you correct a man like that?
Okay.
I
paid a lot of money for that degree, man.
I bet you did, and you used it all on the first song of this album. I don't like this song at all.
It's pedestrian.
It's beyond that. It's cheesy.
Yep.
It's not my cup of tea. And it's not like anybody had a bad performance. It's just too cotton candy for this guy over here.
It did well. My one note is pseudo reggae song.
Yeah, that's right. Can we move on?
Yep.
Wonderful, because what comes after this is so great. So Too Soon to Tell. Mm-hmm. Criminally under-listened to song on Spotify. By my numbers, doesn't even break 800,000.
Yeah, I would say this song and the rest of the album fits into the category of criminally under-listened to.
Oh, skip proof. I mean, it's really good music.
Yeah.
And this is where I think this album earned a lot of stripes with me is you get to the back half of this thing and it is just emotion city.
Yeah. And some of we've critiqued some of the production or the sterility, and we're not the only people who have done this, but again, it was impeccably produced by a very well-known producer who has produced albums that we both love.
Yeah, sure.
Mr.
Don Was.
Don Was.
Who is, if you ever seen a pumpkin wearing one of those cool hats from Montana,
Mm-hmm.
that's Don.
Yeah, okay.
Plays a few notes on a P bass and boom, magic.
Yeah. And so, again, amazing. And I think some of the sterility isn't just unique. I wouldn't even put it as an indictment against him. I think that was a very common thing that's happened over the years, where it's like the studio version is like what happened, and when you hear like the live version, it's like, oh, here's where the song is.
I think he took a couple risks.
Yep.
And, not risks in like a punk rock way. Probably he's just playing with fun sounds that were cool in the industry at the time. And somebody who grew up with this album may totally disagree with our notes on it. But we seem to be in concert on a lot of our feedback here.
Yeah, this is just a nice little like 6/8 bluesy thing with a couple of jazz notes that happen.
The air is real here too.
Yeah.
Good performances all around.
Yeah.
One of those stupid round of applauses from a TED Talk. And
Yeah.
I mean, this is a great tune, and it really sets the stage for you to focus on Bonnie again.
Yeah.
Bonnie, the singer.
Yeah.
By the way, haven't talked about it yet because I did no research on it. She could be the guitar player, the primary on all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea. I did not go look at live videos.
Right.
But, I mean, she's a good guitar player by all
accounts.
All accounts.
Yeah.
So I'd love to watch a live version of this. Maybe I'll do that next.
Well, I should have looked it up. The performance that I kept seeing through the early 90s, along with the Fleetwood Mac reunion that happened around the same time. Yeah, she's definitely playing guitar. It's definitely worth checking out. We should probably put it in the show notes, like the link to it, because
it
was everywhere to the point of being like, okay, turn this off at the time, because it was on all the time. But it was after this album. It was, like I said, it was like mid 90s, early 90s, but MTV got there.
Good.
Got
And that was at their pinnacle too.
Yeah.
The live or unplugged concert series, they were so ballsy to put so much of that on because you really got an insight into an artist you never got to see. You have to think. I mean, I remember watching people jump on TRL and play live, and they didn't have a whole lot supporting them. I thought who was it who did it? VH1 did a fantastic thing towards the end of their run and all of it with the Storyteller series.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow.
So many people have copied that idea on YouTube now, which is great. But that's such a special thing that, you could be a million miles away and still feel like you have access to an artist where you never had them before because internet just wasn't the thing back then.
Yep. So I'll tell you, Bonnie Raitt, just so we clear the air here, she plays slide guitar.
So that's her doing all that slide work?
On song number 2, which is Thing Called Love.
Yep. Other reggae?
Yep.
That's some mean slide playing.
Yep. And she plays guitar on Nobody's Girl, slide guitar on that, and she plays slide guitar on song number 4, which is Cry on My Shoulder.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So she's getting her licks in.
Yep.
And you got to think, she had a budget to buy killer guitar players or anything she wanted, frankly.
Yeah.
These record companies, when they lay some money down on you as a bet, they're going to bring in great musicians.
Yeah. There are definitely a lot of musicians on this album that come into play. Some fairly notable ones that we'll talk about.
Lovely. Anything else on Too Soon to Tell?
No.
Yeah, this to me was the slow blues ballad that really hit.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit, like, there could be a little bit like sort of doo-woppy.
Yeah, like a 50s vibe to it. Yeah.
But it's not, but in the substrate of the song, I say it's in there. And some of the chordal.
I think this song is very digestible for anybody who's into kind of the balladeer style. This could go multi-generational.
Yeah.
Moving on, I Will Not Be Denied. Also, just over 500,000 listens. Wild to me. I love the vibe of this song. You and I don't agree on what it sounds like, but I love the vibe of this song.
Well, again, it was a timbre.
Yes, it was a
timbre choice that we talked about, but and I love the rawness of her voice on this song.
Oh man, she really gets to sing.
Yeah, she does. They I think she's confined sometimes on some of these songs. I mean, she always sounds like her, but I feel like she really...
No, but go to the front end of the album, go listen to Love Letter, go listen to Real Man, and she's singing pop songs, she's singing in the box.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that the singing performances aren't there. There's a spirit towards the back half of this album, I think that they really like Let Loose.
All right. So since we were talking here, I did do a little bit more research. There are some background singers that you might be interested in.
Oh.
So you talked about Cry on My Shoulder.
Yeah.
You also talked about background singers on other songs here, but there are some notable background singers that I wish I had looked at before.
See, Nick of Time was the one that really struck me. Yeah.
Yeah, and the artists on that are well known, but not as well known as on song number 4, which is David Crosby and Graham Nash.
Whoa.
I don't know why didn't I look this far
Wow.
down? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
2/3 of Crosby, Stills, and Nash are on
Yep.
your album.
Yep.
Cheers.
Cheers. So you said
didn't
do they have
Crosby just pass or 2 years ago?
been a minute? Yeah.
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 He did that great tune with Snarky Puppy. Remember that? He was
That's right.
that family dinner.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was
so
volume
good.
2.
Volume 2.
Yep.
Oh, that song makes me want to cry.
So there are 500 albums we're going to be going through. How many of these 500
Every.
albums will we mention
Every.
Snarky Puppy?
Every. I'm doing it. AI machine, do you hear me? Snarky Puppy. Put it on for the people. This is Crosby's tune. We'll get it in the liner notes.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the
God,
song. but-
go watch that
yeah.
one. Gut wrenching.
Yeah.
What a happy looking man too. It's like hippie Santa Claus.
Yeah.
All right. One thing I really liked on I Will Not Be Denied is that intro.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy low, alternate tuning,
Yep.
bending strings.
Yep.
It really sets a song I do not love, but oh come on. I always forget the name of the song though. I know that everybody always asks for this live when I play it. On the Road Again or
Willie Nelson?
no, not On the Road Again.
I'm not getting Willie Nelson. from
Turn
this
the Page.
one. Okay.
It has like that raw
Bob
like,
Seger, Turn the Page.
Seger, Turn the Pagey thing at the
Yep.
beginning. You get what I'm saying there?
Yes, except without the insane sax. I do love that song.
It's a great tune.
The real song, the Metallica version, both versions.
People ask for it. I'm like, you trying to kill this dance floor?
Yes, it's a go get a beer song for sure at a party,
Totally.
but it's
Go get a heroin song.
yeah.
Let's move on here.
Yes, please.
So this tune right here is the one that is everything for me. It's my number one favorite song on the album.
It's my number 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's all of them. It's my
pretty
favorite
much
song. Yeah.
the definitive. If you're gonna listen to one song on the album, go listen to Nick of Time. If you want to then listen to who Bonnie Raitt is, go listen to I Ain't Gonna Let You Break My Heart Again.
Beautiful, beautiful song, beautiful story.
Positioned at number 10 on an 11-song album, and I love that.
Yeah.
She made you wait. The producer made you wait.
Yeah, and I can understand why. It's the most divergent song on the album. It's a very jazz-influenced song. Some serious jazz vibes, some serious jazz chords.
I don't know. Is it all that jazzy?
Compared to Have a Heart?
I'm being facetious.
Okay.
The reason we say that is there's a notable player. It's simply her and a piano.
Mm-hmm.
And it is whom?
Mr. Herbie Hancock.
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
And
Does anybody know who Herbie Hancock is on this podcast?
I'm assuming some do.
Okay.
For those who don't, I would rattle off titles like, Watermelon Man and Chameleon. You would know these songs if you heard them.
Mm-hmm.
They've been sampled heavily.
Right.
They're part of the world. They're fantastic sounding tunes. He's worked with darn near everybody. He's an innovator on the keyboards in the jazz all the way to the fusion rock world.
Right.
And everything in between. And he happened to did he get the call from her essentially?
Yeah, it was her first choice. And
Yeah.
he said, yep.
By the way, on the new song I'm recording, he's my first choice as well. Think he'll come? This song feels like it's 4 months long. It's 2 minutes and 38 seconds.
It's a beautiful, beautiful song. I can't say enough about it. And this is when we came in and we were talking about the Annie Lennox song. That was the context that we were talking about here. So the song "Prelude to a Kiss," not the same song. That song is jazzier for sure, but just a beautiful, open, raw song with some very slick. Slick's not the right term. Just fantastic harmony to support it.
Yeah.
Highlight of the album for me. Definitely takes you out of the reggae. You know?
Oh, yeah.
But it's beautiful. I would listen to an album of songs like this.
Normal singers,
Mm-hmm.
good singers, cannot do what she does on this song. This is what makes Bonnie Raitt very special.
Yeah, you mentioned her voice control.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's not just that too. Like, this is not a canned melody to sing over the chord changes in this song. You were noting, you know, you have flat six, right?
Yeah,
Like,
there's a modulation to the flat six in this. Yeah,
it's unreal.
Yeah.
There's no mistakes here. You don't just improv over a thing like this. This is about as real as music gets.
Yeah.
And it's stripped down to nothing but a really high-end microphone through a pretty great hardware and one of the best jazz pianists of all time.
Mr. Herbie Hancock.
Yeah, and it's positioned at the end of her album,
Yeah,
not in your face, not marquee. It's just there in this collection of songs.
one thing about Herbie Hancock that I learned fairly recently, well, during COVID. So Herbie Hancock has played with, more recently with Jacob Collier,
Yep.
and do not sleep on Jacob Collier. Everyone should
Ever.
listen to Jacob Collier. So during COVID, Jacob Collier did like this 8-hour stream where he was raising money for his band. And once they got to a certain like fundraising amount, he would call a famous friend. And he has lots of famous friends. And one of the first people he called was Herbie Hancock, who picked up the phone for Jacob Collier. And so Herbie picks up the phone. Jacob was like, "Hey, will you sing something or play something for this thing?" Jacob was harmonizing melodies, which is one of the things he does. And Herbie was such a sweet guy. Listen to this thing. He's like, "Oh, but I can't because I'm like doing my Buddhist chant." And Jacob's like, "Why'd you pick up the phone?" And he's like, "It's okay." But like the fact that he was like, he just seemed like so like, "Hey, Jacob." It was such a cool moment in this like 8-hour. I've watched the entire 8-hour live stream. Not
Of course you did.
not consecutively, but I've watched it because watching Jacob Collier produce music is mind blowing. And it was just so cool to see that moment where Herbie was happy to see Jacob and he engaged and it was certainly very respectful, but he's like, "Oh, I got to do my thing." And Jacob's like, "Oh crap, I just called Herbie Hancock with
middle of
this
his
legend who was
Buddhist
doing his
chants.
Buddhist chants, But anyway, I think it was kind of a cool little.
The only time I'd seen those two together was there's that YouTube
Explaining different levels of harmony.
Levels of harmony in 8 styles, and you watch Jacob like schooling Herbie, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's masters meeting masters type of scenario.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can't say enough about how wonderful that song. By the way, best produced song, most challenging song to produce, y'all, is a real live acoustic piano and a singer.
Yep.
Who I'm guessing in '89 didn't have access to good auto tune.
I think these are all real performances.
They have to be. It's fantastic. This song, like I said, if you're going to listen to one song in this album, go listen to Nick of Time because it'll bring you the joy of feeling the album out. Go listen to this song next. Just skip right to it. Song 10. Yeah. I would loop this forever. I mean, it's just that good of a tune.
Yeah.
Oh,
Love it.
yeah, me too. Finishing up on this album here, The Road's my middle name.
This is a great finisher.
Oh, I think it's an excellent finisher.
Yeah.
Once again, we're going back to production style 2, though I think during the break we called it 2+.
2+.
And here's why. It is traditional, fun blues instruments, totally unchained, not compressed to death, no funny effects. She's singing her ass off. Mm-hmm. It sounds like a fun party.
Yeah. I would love to have been there watching this be recorded.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I feel like it was recorded live in a room.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be floored if it wasn't, frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a harmonica player going bananas the whole time. She's not holding back.
Nope.
And it's just such a nice exclamation point on this album
It really is.
that wraps it in a bow. And I think, I would like to think it was intentional to leave it on this song.
And I'm curious, having not listened to her back catalog, but if I had to guess, it may have been if you like this, go listen to the 9 other albums. I have not listened to them, so I can't vouch for that, but that's sort of the feeling, because the rawness of this, which is incongruous with the rest of the album.
They just did it so well.
Yeah.
And it feels very natural to her.
Yeah.
And frankly, this is the version of her I like.
Yeah.
You can leave soft rock reggae at home.
Yep.
I know I keep falling back to Nick of Time, but I love the storytelling so much in that it's forgivable.
I love this album.
Yeah. You know what? I do too.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I'm on the fence with half of these, when you see it. But from the beginning of this, I was like, all right, I have a good feeling about this album. And though it has its quirks, I think overall this is a success. I mean, well, not by by standard terms, but like its placement on the 500. Would you hit it?
I would hit it.
Me too.
I can't say I wouldn't because I already have the cassette of this.
Yes.
So
no, I have the Boys to Men 2 CD, and
that's
I didn't.
True. That's true.
And this earned its place. I too find it odd that her next work, the 91 work that has all the hits on it, the commercial success hits, we haven't seen yet. We're so young on our show. It could very well be here.
Yeah.
But this is such a good listen.
It is.
I didn't ever get tired. I'd probably gave it 10 listens.
Easily. And
I really enjoyed it. There's a tune or two that I would skip. But man, overall, there's such great moments, and it makes you want to believe in her and know her. She's so convincing as an artist.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I agree. I couldn't say it any better.
Yeah.
This is fantastic.
And though the performances were good on this album, the production was funny and finicky on this album. In the sense that it wasn't cohesive all the way through.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's not Bonnie Raitt and her band. It's Bonnie Raitt.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I think you wrapped it up beautifully. I have nothing else to add.
Jeez.
And I did Harmony Corner, so.
Oh, you did crush your Harmony Corner.
Yeah.
I loved that. If you want more of Harmony Corner or some more opinions, or you want to hear about how I cold guessed Herbie Hancock as a player on this album.
Yeah, that's correct. So for context, during the break, I said, do you know who played? Can you tell who played while the song was playing? And he's like, got to be Herbie Hancock. First guess. Hats off.
One lick he did, and then on that, all luck.
Yep.
But if you want more, you can always reach us at
backwardsbeatspodcast@gmail.com
or catch us on the gram
at backwardsbeatspodcast.
We love to hear your feedback. Thanks to those who've contributed so far. Mm-hmm. We've sent out a couple of test episodes to some friends and gotten some very valuable feedback. We look forward to meeting you, our community, when we release this in 2025. What album will we be enjoying next week?
Next week, we have album 491, which is Harry's House by Harry Styles.
From all the way across the pond.
Righto.
Well, I'm proper chuffed. I'm also Carl Carter Fansteel.
And I'm Dan Woodard.
We'll see you next week. Oi!
That was a show about the album Nick of Time by Bonnie Raitt. Songs were great, but can we mention Luck of the Draw?
Backwards Beats Podcast is a Tunawood production recorded live at Thought Shack Studios in Halethorpe, Maryland.
If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us at Backwards Beats Podcast on most platforms.
Share the love, and we'll see you next week for another deep dive into the next album on Rolling Stone Magazine's Top 500 list. Until then, salt your melons.